For years, it was the talk of the town. The now debunked Trump-Russia collusion narrative was painted all over major newspapers. TV newscasts went wall-to-wall with questions concerning whether or not former President Donald Trump was a Russian agent. The allegations even led to the first impeachment trial of former President Trump. Years later, those same media outlets would issue a flurry of corrections, but those corrections, they weren't on the front page where they had plastered the false allegations. That would have been the fair thing to do. And of course, by the time the news organizations corrected their stories, the damage, well, it was already done. Former White House Chief of Staff for former President Donald Trump, Mark Meadows, joins me. Good evening, sir.
It's great to be with you, Greta. Thanks.
What was the impact in the White House of all the investigations?
Well, I mean, listen, if you could only focus on the real job and not have to answer all the questions that each day in, day out were yelled by many in the media, it was the narrative of the day. And you're right, the apologies came, but they were, they were on page 7, or they were on page 10, or they were in the F block or the Z block on any news program. And what happened is, not only was the damage done, but the narrative continued. Adam Schiff went on every single legacy media program that would have him, and, I've seen the evidence, I've seen the evidence. So how does he show his face today in light of this report that not only says there was no evidence, but that he and others had to know that there was no truth to it?
Well, look, Republicans and Democrats have been fighting for a couple hundred years. But I think the really sort of painful thing, at least for me, is that when I see these institutions, when I see the FBI, the top of the FBI, not the people as special agents, and when I see like I see Adam Schiff when he went out there, when Adam Schiff said that he had evidence, I thought, well, he's a former assistant United States attorney, he wouldn't lie, would he?
Right.
And so that's where I think where the confidence shakes in so many of the American people, and that's such a huge disservice.
Well, it is a huge disservice, and you said it right at the top of the show, Greta. The vast majority of the men and women who serve in the FBI are honorable, wonderful public servants. This had to do with a few people that broke protocol, ignored the rules, and then—
That's a nice way to say it.
Yeah.
You say broke protocol and ignored the rules. I'm harsher than that.
Yeah.
I expect them to be honorable. It's not sort of, even the Durham report says, well, there's no political bias, and that they didn't follow the strict rules of the law or something like that.
Right.
That's cute. That's clever and nice.
Well, but here's what we do know. We do know that many in the Obama White House knew, many really at the FBI knew that there was no there. And yet they continued this investigation. But it's not just the investigation, because that all came to an end with the Mueller report. But it was the narrative that continued on through 2020. And as Director Ratcliffe was just sharing with your audience, declassified documents that said there's nothing here, and what you ought to do is look at the facts, yet were largely ignored and continue to be ignored. And I would also say will be ignored tomorrow and the next day, because this narrative will continue to repeat. They will bring old clips of Adam Schiff and others, James Clapper, Director Brennan, all of these folks coming up to actually say, we need to be concerned about Donald Trump as a Russian spy. Let me tell you who it was affecting the most. Donald Trump, President Donald Trump at the time, was he says, it's amazing what I could accomplish for the American people if I didn't have to defend myself each and every day with something that is just not true. He told my wife and I, he says, Mark, your wife knows more about Russia and has more Russian connections than I do. This was early on, before we actually even knew the facts. But the deeper you go, the more troubling it is. And I can tell you, it's having real repercussions, Greta, on Capitol Hill. I talked to a few members early this morning. The $500 million that's for a new headquarters, gone. I can tell you there's not an appetite with Republicans to do that. They're also looking at defunding other aspects of it. And part of that is the genteel response that we got from the FBI after the Durham report came out. Oh, well, we addressed this a few years ago.
Well, that was what Director Wray said in some tweet, that was addressed a couple of days ago. It really does it really requires someone to have a hard line and, apologize to the American people and really clean it up. It's not just, a nice little tweet.
Well, listen, it deserves to be cleaned up for the American people, and it deserves to be cleaned up for those men and women that serve in the FBI, because, you know, right now.
They're out right now. They're serving warrants on people, and they're likely to get shot at. And they're out there doing that while Jim Comey is slipping a note to his friend in New York. He doesn't have the courage to put his own fingerprints on it to get to the press. Well, obviously, I squashed time together, but you know, it really is appalling, I think. Anyway, former Trump Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, always nice to see you.
Great to be with you.